Hi everyone, good afternoon. I hope all of you are well fed and not tired with the day's classes. I'm just waiting for some of us to join in and then we'll start. So on screen, you can see the agenda for today. I think those I had expected to join the meeting are almost here. So on entry, please make sure that you go to the chat box, and I'm going to share this link in the chat box. You can solve this activity. And post your answers to me. Good afternoon. Okay, those who are entering now, please let me know if you can see the link. If not, I'll reshare. So you have to enter and work on this activity. It's a labeling activity. Once you complete, you can take a screenshot and share it with me on WhatsApp. Okay, there are students who are still entering the class. So I think Alfia, Bushra, Urmila just entered. Please unmute yourself and let me know if you can hear me. Sakshi, you also entered just now.
Yes, Miss Amrita, I can hear you.
Okay, so everyone is working on this starter activity whose link is shared in the chat box once again. Please check the chat box, go to the link, solve it, and just take a screenshot and WhatsApp me your results. So we'll take a couple of minutes. Make sure you're a little quick so that we can start on time today. So we'll come back at 1:07. It's 1:05 right now. I'll give you a time check in 2 minutes. Okay, a quick time check. It's 2 minutes. Please share your responses and let's get back to this call. Shraddha, have you been able to share it with me? Okay. So please don't worry about the spelling errors or the gaps or spaces that you give in your words. That will show wrong if you haven't exactly typed the word as I have typed in the answer key. So because the answers are case sensitive, but if you have named something completely different, then that should be considered as a mistake. Okay, I have received Aishwarya, Rimjim, Shravani, and Shraddha's work. We have another. Six of you waiting for your results. I received Bushra's. Samriddhi, will you be able to send it to me either as a screenshot on WhatsApp or on mail? Okay, I have received Sakshi's response. All right. I will share my screen and then just quickly solve it so that you can see the correct responses finally. Let's all come back to the call right now and look at the screen that I have shared with all of you. So you have to label the parts of the light microscope. The first one is the eyepiece lens. So you can just type eyepiece. The second arrow points to the broad adjustment. Please start using these terms instead of any alternative words to make sure that whatever terms you're using are universally accepted. Then the third box refers to the fine adjustment of your light microscope. Then comes the revolving nose piece. This is the structure to which your objective lenses are attached. So the next one is the objective lens, or you can just say objective. Then comes the stage clip, which fixes your slide on the stage. And the stage clip is on the stage of your microscope. And finally, you have the diaphragm, or it is also called condenser. Okay, so let's take a look at all the labeled parts right now. If you have mentioned these labelings correctly, then all of your parts identification has been correct. So let me know in the chat box how many did you get right. I saw your responses on the photos that you have shared, but some of you just got errors because of spelling mistakes. Just skip those and let me know in the chat box how many did you get right after looking at how I have labeled. How many of your labelings were correct?
Miss Amrita,
Yeah,
for broad adjustment, can we write course adjustment?
you can write course adjustment. Yes, broad adjustment and course adjustment are the same, but do not write anything else. These two are accepted terms. Let's see what you all have got correct. Okay, 6, 5, 4 corrects. I got 5. Anyone who got everything right? So there's a total of 8 labelings. Is there anyone who got 8? 4, okay. 5. Okay, this is very important for you because you will be using this microscope in your practicals. I'm not telling you that this will come for your exam, but for a practical knowledge, this is something that is expected, basic expectation of any 10th grade pass student. Okay, so you should know all the main structures of the light microscope. All right, thank you for sharing your scores. We will now go back to our agenda. And like I promised in the post that we will be discussing more about cell organelles. Today we'll be discussing about 4 cell organelles, that is ribosomes, mitochondria, chloroplasts, and lysosomes. Before I start, I want you to keep something in mind. That is, in today's lesson, you will study a lot of variations or a lot of differences between these organelles structure and their biological function. Okay, I will not be reminding you from time to time, but you have to look at trends or very striking differences between some organelles and what are some similarities between them. So in today's lesson, from each organelle to organelle, as we move and study in details about them, try to look for what is common about them and what is unique about each organelle. Okay. Then when we come towards the end of the discussion, I will ask you to summarize what you have learned in terms of comparing each organelles. Like what is unique about ribosomes? What is common about mitochondria and chloroplast? What is different about mitochondria and chloroplast? How is lysosome different from rest of the organelles? And such questions. After that, we'll do some review, that is recall the structure through diagrams. And if there is time, we'll do some reading and I'll also share some study tips based on how to answer some questions related to organelles. So let's begin with the first organelle, that is the ribosomes. So something unique about ribosome is that this is the organelle which does not have its own membrane. Before studying about ribosomes, we had discussed about nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus. All the three of those organelles have their own membranes. Apart from the cell having its own cell membrane, these organelles also have their own boundaries or membranes. But ribosome does not possess a membrane. It is a membraneless or a non-membrane organelle. Now, this ribosome is actually made up of two subunits, one large subunit and one small subunit. Okay, the large subunit looks like a curved palm of your hand, and the small subunit looks like a fist fitting into it. Now, the interesting thing about ribosomes is that our cells possess two types of ribosomes. One is a 70S and one is an 80S type of ribosome. So the subunits of these two different ribosomes are different. The 80S ribosomes are bigger and denser. The 70S ribosomes are lighter. Another difference is that the 70S ribosomes and 80S ribosomes location. So we will soon see about that. Let's quickly take a look at what the 70 and 80S ribosomes are and what are their structure, where are they found. So basically the bacterial ribosome or any prokaryote, bacterial cells or prokaryotes are more and more primitive. That is, they have evolved and originated on Earth before eukaryotes came in. Now, what is the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes? If you remember, or if you have done your cell study, prokaryotes are cells which don't have a well-defined nucleus. So that means the genetic material is in the cytoplasm itself. These are prokaryotes. Eukaryotes are cells which have membrane-bound organelles like endoplasmic reticulum, and they also have a well-defined nucleus. This is the main difference. Now, in case of bacteria and all other prokaryotes, they possess the 70S type of ribosome, whereas eukaryotes like amoeba, paramecium, any unicellular animal or fungi or insects or us, fishes, mammals, we are all eukaryotes. We possess 80S ribosome as well as we also possess the 70S. Now let's listen to this more intently. That is, the 80S ribosome that we have is found in our cytoplasm, whereas the 70S ribosomes that we have, they are found inside our mitochondria, and in plants they are found in mitochondria as well as chloroplasts. Okay, so if someone asks you that what kind of ribosomes do eukaryotes have, it will be both. We have 80S type floating in the cytoplasm, and we also have 70S type of ribosome inside a mitochondria and chloroplast. But what about prokaryotes? Prokaryotes do not have the 80S type of ribosomes. They have only the small one, the small variety, that is a 70S ribosome. Now, previously in the slide, I told you that ribosomes are made up of a large subunit, a small subunit. Okay. Let's look at what is the large subunit and what is the small subunit of the bacterial ribosome. That is a 70S type. So in the bacterial ribosome, the largest subunit is made up of a 50S subunit. I'll tell you what that S is, plus a 30S subunit. So the 30S subunit is a small one and the 50S is the large subunit. Now you must be thinking that if the large subunit is 50 and the small is 30, and if I add both of them, they're coming up to 80. Then why is it called 70S? You'll hold on to that thought. But for now, remember that the 70S ribosome has 50 plus 30S subunit. Whereas the 80S ribosome, which is found in our cytoplasm, eukaryotes, has a 60S large subunit and a 40S small subunit. Okay. Remember, for your exam, this is not important. You don't have to remember the subunit numbers for your exam, but you have to understand that ribosomes are always two types and they are made up of a large and a small subunit. Okay. Now, a quick check. 70th type of ribosome is found in prokaryotes. They are also found in eukaryotes inside their mitochondria and the chloroplasts. Whereas 80S ribosomes are only found in the cytoplasm of eukaryotes. Quickly recalling, where all will you find the ribosomes? You will either find them freely floating in the cytoplasm, or if you remember, we studied rough endoplasmic reticulum. In case of rough endoplasmic reticulum, the ribosomes will be lining the endoplasmic reticulum membrane. So they're studded on the outer surface of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So now coming to this letter S. Why is this S there? What is that S in the ribosome? So S basically stands for something called the Sedberg's unit. Okay. The Sedberg's unit is a measure for how fast or how slow a particular particle is sedimenting when you are centrifuging it. Okay. So we'll see what a centrifuge is first. The term Sedberg comes from the name of the inventor, that is Theodore Sedberg, who had actually invented the ultracentrifugation technique. So in ultracentrifugation technique, what happens is there is a rotor or an axis connected to a motor, and the motor spins at very high speed. When the motor spins, attached to the motors are test tubes or small centrifuge tubes containing your biological sample. When the biological sample is spun at such a high speed, things which were not visible to your eyes will, because of the centrifugal force, will start sedimenting at the bottom of your sample. Okay. Now, the denser the particle is, the faster it will settle down. The lighter the particle, the slower it will settle. So larger particles will have a bigger S value and smaller particles will have a smaller S value. S is Sedberg's unit. Now, in case of your ribosomes, when biologists take extracts of ribosomes and centrifuge it in the ultracentrifugation machine, it looks somewhat like this. Look at the image on your screen. So right now the centrifuge is rotating, and while rotating, the tubes will start spinning like a giant wheel. Okay. When they spin, the ribosomes subunits will separate and they will sediment at different rates. Why? Because the larger subunit is denser, so it will sediment faster and it will have a greater S value. The smaller subunit is lighter, so it will take more number of rotations to sediment, and based on that there are different complex calculations where you will get a small S value. Okay, so it was noted that the bacterial 70S ribosome gave rise to two sediments, one sediment of 50S value and one of 30S value. Because of that, scientists came to know that bacteria, mitochondria, and chloroplasts have 70S type of ribosome, whereas the cytoplasm of the eukaryotes and the endoplasmic reticulum lining contains a heavier type of ribosome, that is the 80S type. And in case of the 80S type, like I showed you in the previous slide, here in 80S type of ribosome, two bands of sediments were formed. One was at the position of 60S and one at the position of 40S. Okay, two subunits have different density, so they will sediment at different time and with different number of rotations. So it's basic physics over here. I'll just let you read the slide for 30 seconds. And if you have any questions at this point about ribosome structure, please ask me now. You can unmute and ask, or you can type in the chat box. Yes, Rimjim.
So how exactly does the difference in the number of subunits affect the function of the ribosome?
No, we haven't gone to the function yet. It's just the structure. It doesn't affect the function. The function is the same in both. The only thing is, with time, the ribosomes had also evolved from prokaryotic cell to eukaryotic cell. This is an evolutionary change. And when we study about what actually makes the ribosome, then I can tell you why the density or the size or the heaviness or weight of these two ribosomes are different. We'll come to it, Rimshim. The function is the same in all cases. Okay, just type in that you are ready to move ahead if you are done reading, and if you don't have any questions, then we can move ahead. Okay, thank you for your responses. I'll now move to learning a little more about features of this ribosome. Let's look at the dimensions. So overall, on an average, we say that ribosomes are 25 nanometers in diameter. But again, remember, the 80S will be close to 25, but the 70S will be a little smaller. Sometimes 70S ribosomes are found to be just 17 or 18 nanometers in diameter. So they are very, very minute. Again, they don't have any membranes covering them. Now, some ribosomes may be associated with the endoplasmic reticulum and they give the rough texture to the endoplasmic reticulum. So they are called rough endoplasmic reticulum, the ribosomes plus the endoplasmic reticulum. Or at times, the ribosomes, not at times, but most of the time, ribosomes are freely floating in the cytoplasm. So again, what are these ribosomes actually made up of? I want you to step back and recall what we studied about nucleus. So we had studied that inside the nucleus there is DNA in the form of chromatin and chromosome. When the DNA needs, it will code for, DNA contains lots of codes for different proteins. So that DNA will perform transcription and produce a messenger RNA or mRNA. That mRNA will leave the nucleus through the nuclear pore, go to the cytoplasm, associate with ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum, and make new proteins. That's called protein synthesis. This is what we had studied under nucleus. Now, when the DNA is making RNA, DNA can make three different types of RNA. Some are messenger RNAs, some are ribosomal RNAs, and some are transfer RNAs. Do you remember which structure helps in making ribosomal RNAs? We had previously studied this.
Nucleolus
Correct.
something.
The nucleolus helps in synthesis of ribosomal RNA. So because the name is ribosomal, you might be getting a hint that these ribosomal RNAs are needed to make ribosomes. Do we see ribosomes inside the nucleus or outside the nucleus of a cell? Are ribosomes found inside the nucleus or outside the nucleus of any cell? What do you think? Aishwarya, where will you find ribosomes if you're looking at a cell with through an electron microscope? Where will you find these ribosomes? The answer is right on your screen.
Inside the nucleus.
Inside the nucleus, ribosomes.
No.
Inside the nucleus, you will only find DNA and RNA. Okay. Now, the nucleolus will make ribosomal RNA. The ribosomal RNAs will leave the nucleus through the nuclear pore, go to the cytoplasm, and they actually organize and assemble, and they become
Rough they go to the rough endoplasmic reticulum.
yes. So what happens is when they go to the cytoplasm, if they are a messenger RNA, they will help in protein synthesis. But if the nucleolus has made ribosomal RNA, they will go to the cytoplasm and they'll become ribosomes. So they will arrange themselves in a 3D conformation and become spherical. Like you saw the large subunit shape and the small subunit shape. They will form those three-dimensional structures, fit together, and then they will become ribosomes themselves. Now, to become ribosomes, only RNA cannot just fold. RNA needs some proteins to wind and wrap around to become those large subunit and small subunit. That's why we say that ribosomes are nothing but a mixture of RNA and protein. Okay, so ribosomes are basically consisting of ribosomal proteins and the nucleic acid, that is RNA, rRNA. Okay, not DNA, not mRNA. Ribosomes are themselves made up of proteins and rRNA or ribosomal RNA. Next, this is something that we already know. They are found in the cytoplasm or on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. These ribosomes which are found in the cytoplasm or RER, they are the larger ones or the ATS type. They will be found only in eukaryotic cells. While those which are found in prokaryotic cells like bacteria uh, and ribosomes found in mitochondria and chloroplasts, they are the smaller ones, which is the 70S type. Ribosomes are important for protein synthesis. Cell proteins produced by ribosomes could be enzymes or could be structural proteins. So what is the job of ribosome actually? That is, inside your cytoplasm, free amino acids are there. Okay, whenever you eat your meal, your digestive system breaks the proteins into peptides and amino acids, and they are absorbed by rest of your body through blood. Okay, now rest of your cells have all the raw materials. They have amino acids, but your cell needs a protein. That means these amino acids have to be sewn into a string, that is a polypeptide chain. So who will do the job of joining all these amino acids together and making a polypeptide chain or a protein? That is ribosome. With the help of mRNA and with the help of many other proteins, together they work together in the endoplasmic reticulum surface. Okay, that's why the ribosomes are sitting on the surface of the endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum is giving a site that, okay, you can do your work over here. Then I will collect your protein and send it to the Golgi body. Understand? So the ribosomes work with other RNAs and proteins and make new proteins from amino acids in your cell. So that's the main function of ribosomes, protein synthesis, and they can synthesize proteins which are later going to behave like enzymes, or they can behave like channels which will help in transport of materials outside to inside your cell. So these channels will be on your cell membrane, or they can behave like immunoglobulins or your antibodies. So any type, it could be a structural protein or it could be an enzymatic protein. All these proteins are made by ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum working together. We have a question, two questions on this screen. The left one is asking what is the part A and part B of an ATS ribosome. And in the right hand side, you're seeing a picture. The green color structure is actually the ribosome. You can see the large subunit and the small subunit. And you are also seeing, if you can watch closely, this is, look at my cursor movement. This is the mRNA coming from the nucleus. So between the large subunit and the small subunit, there is a gap. Okay, there's a hole. And the mRNA passes through it. While it is passing through it, ribosome reads the secret message or the codes in the mRNA. And based on that code, it will join different amino acids and make a polypeptide or a protein. That's what it's doing over here. These colored spheres over here, they are amino acids being joined one after the other by the ribosome while the ribosome is reading the mRNA strand. Okay, you're going to study about this in detail in unit 6 when you will study about how proteins are made in your cell. So right now in the chat box, quickly let me know in one single message what is A and what is B on the left hand side question. Your time starts now. Can you identify parts A and B? Yes, Samriddhi, you're right. And B is, yes, A is the larger subunit and B is the smaller subunit of ATS ribosome. What about the second question? Okay, let's start answering for the second question. Read the question carefully. A ribosome can be described as a protein factory, a trash collector, powerhouse of your cell, or brain of the cell. Yes, all of you are right. Because ribosomes help in reading the mRNA message and converting that into a protein by joining amino acids, they are called the protein factory. Okay. That's why when I was teaching you about endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus, I told you that all of them work together with the ribosome and help in protein synthesis. You have to remember the sequence in which the protein is gradually being formed and then released. Okay. Let's now look at our next organelle. Our next organelle is a very complex and interesting organelle. On the left hand side, you are seeing the electron micrograph of the mitochondria. After this class, you can go back to your Hodder textbook and read about mitochondria in more details. So on the right hand side is a hand-drawn diagram of the structure of mitochondria. What you're seeing is a labeled diagram. I have a question over here to check if you are understanding this diagram. My question is, does mitochondria have its own membrane? Yes or no? If yes, then how many membranes does it have? Please share that in your chat box. Look at the diagram and let me know, does mitochondria have any membrane? If yes, then how many? If no, then just no. Okay. Yes, mitochondria has membrane. In fact, if you watch closely, the mitochondria is a double membraned organelle. Okay. It has an inner membrane and an outer membrane. And you can clearly see that both the membranes have been labeled over here. Now, from both these membranes, the inner and outer, the outer one is a smooth membrane. It doesn't have any processes or projections. Whereas the inner one is very folded. And the inner membrane is so folded that it is thrown into finger-like projections towards the inside of the mitochondria. Okay. And these finger-like projections are called the cristae. Cristae is the plural for these finger-like projection names. Now, if you watch more closely, in the inner side of the cristae, there are some stick or stalk-like structures lining the entire inner membrane. These stalk-like structures are nothing but proteins. These are membrane proteins. These proteins are attached to the inner membrane, but their function is that of an enzyme. So these proteins lining the inner membrane are enzymatic in nature, but they are fixed to the inner membrane. Let's move towards the center of the mitochondria. The white space that you're seeing that is inside the mitochondria, in reality, that space is filled with fluid, and that is called the matrix of mitochondria. And the matrix of mitochondria is very dense because it is richly filled with many granular structures. If you can study these granular structures, you will find that the matrix of mitochondria is filled with various types of proteins. Among these proteins, some proteins are enzymatic in nature, and surprisingly, some of these granules are not proteins, they are just ribosomes. So mitochondria has its own ribosomes. And which type of ribosome will they be? They will be the 70th type of ribosome. So along with lots and lots of enzymes floating in the matrix, there are enzymes lining the mitochondria, and there are ribosomes inside the mitochondrial matrix. Along with mitochondrial matrix ribosome, you can see that there are tiny circular pieces of DNA. These are mitochondrial DNA. These are not the DNA that is there in the cell's nucleus. So a particular typical animal cell will have DNA in its nucleus as well as will have DNA in the mitochondria. These are small circular DNA. Now the DNA in your nucleus is linear. It's a thread, okay, coiled around in the form of chromosome. But the DNA in your mitochondria is a circle. They are circular and very small in size. So what all does the mitochondrial matrix has? They have lots and lots of proteins. Some proteins are enzymes. They have lots of 70s ribosomes, and they have small circular DNA. Okay. Now we are going to read a little more about the mitochondria. So Rimjim, you are asking if mitochondria is a prokaryotic cell. If it is a cell, would we study it under organelles? Can you take out a mitochondria and will the mitochondria be able to survive on its own? No. You call a structure as a cell when it is the smallest unit of life. That means it can exist independently, and it can perform all of its metabolic reactions within itself and survive. If you take out the mitochondria from your cell, it will not be able to sustain on its own. So the mitochondria is not a cell, it is an organelle. Okay. Now, why you asking me whether it is a prokaryotic cell? Is maybe because it has a 70s ribosome. So no, mitochondria is not a prokaryotic cell. It is an organelle, and it has similarities with the bacterial cell or a prokaryote. If you have similarities in structure with something, you don't become that thing, right? So mitochondria has similarity with bacterial cell are many, but that doesn't mean that mitochondria is a bacteria. Okay, mitochondria is an organelle in eukaryotic cells. Does that make it clear, Rimjim?
Yes, Ms. Samantha.
Okay. Let's read a little more about mitochondria. First thing is about its shape and dimension. It's double membraned, rod shaped, 0.5 to 1.5 micrometer wide and 3 to 10 micrometer long. So the width is very small, but the length is greater than the width. So you can see it has a very elongated shape. Where will you find them? You will find them in large numbers in cells which are very active. When I say cells are metabolically active, if you remember, what does it mean? It means that the cell is constantly respiring. Constantly the cell needs energy because continuously the cell is performing lots of chemical reactions, and for that energy is needed. So the cell is active. Mostly your very active cells in your body will be found in your liver, in your digestive system, in your brain, and muscles. These are highly metabolically active cells. So in these cells, your mitochondrial content will be rich. So your cells can always keep on making new mitochondria based on the requirement of your cell. Now let's look at some more details. That is, the outer membrane is smooth and the inner membrane is thrown into folds called cristae. Here is a point written in blue. That means this is a function. So what does the cristae do? Because the inner membrane is thrown into so many folds, within a small space of 3 to 10 micrometer, you can fit in lots of surface area. And more the surface area, more will be those stalk-like enzyme proteins. More the number of proteins, more reactions can be catalyzed. Now the question is, which reaction is mitochondria concerned with? Which reaction does all of these enzymes catalyze? They catalyze the reaction of cellular respiration. That means the glucose that is coming into the cell needs to be broken down and energy needs to be released. So all these enzymes are speeding up that reaction. They are helping in accelerating this reaction of breaking down glucose to produce lots of ATP. Okay. So having crista is an advantage because more the number of crista, more surface area, more enzymes, faster cellular respiration will lead to production of more energy or ATP. Okay. What does the matrix contain? It contains enzymes, metabolites. Metabolites means different reactants of reactions happening inside the mitochondria, small DNA strands, and smaller 70S ribosomes. What is the main function of mitochondria? For now, you just have to know that different stages of cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is not just a simple chemical reaction. It has many, many stages which you will study in A level. Okay. And it's a complex process. So part of that complex process happens inside your cytoplasm. Part of it happens in your mitochondria. So that part which is happening in the mitochondria has to be ready, right? So that it does those parts of reaction efficiently. For that, it needs all these proteins, needs enzymes, needs ribosomes and DNA for that. So this is a site where ATP is produced in your cell. All right. Now, before moving to our next organelle, I just wanted you to keep in mind that when you're looking at an electron micrograph image of a mitochondria, sometimes it may appear elongated. Sometimes your mitochondria might look like a circle. Look at the right hand side picture and tell me why sometimes your mitochondria may look elongated and why it may be circular. You can unmute and share. Sometimes your cell section will show mitochondria as a long shaped structure, but at times they also show it as a circular structure with crystal in it. What could be the reason? It's very simple. Uh, what perspective are you talking about, Rimjim? Are you saying that to my eye it is elongated, but to your eye it is circle? The angle in which image is taken. Okay, Gitanjali, do you change the angle of the lens in an electron microscope? Or you just cut your specimen into slices and then see one of those ultra thin slices? So remember, you can't change the angles of the lens. This is something to do with how you have sliced your cell. Okay. So when you take slices of your cell, if your mitochondria was lying in its long axis, it will get cut in a long way. If your mitochondria was upright, it got cut this way, okay, along its shorter axis. So it will look like a circle. Okay. I want to show you something quickly. so that you understand what I'm trying to say. So if you look at this image, can you all see my screen? Can you see this picture over here?
Yes.
Do you now understand why sometimes mitochondria can look like a circle?
Yeah.
Sometimes it will look like an elongated ellipse shape or oval shape, and sometimes it will look like a circle, because there is no rule that all mitochondria will lie side by side in an organized way. They are just floating in the cytoplasm. At the moment when you took the section of the cell, whichever position your mitochondria is, it will get cut in that manner. Okay. So that's why this question has actually come in one of the Cambridge exams, where they asked, why do mitochondria appear elongated or circular in some cell sections? This is just basic understanding that mitochondria can be floating in any angle in your cytoplasm while taking the section. In whichever manner it got cut, it will appear that way. Okay, let's take a quick look at chloroplasts. Remember what I told you about the objective in the beginning of the class. Watch for similarities, watch for differences, watch for unique characteristics in every organelle, okay? So here on the left hand side is an electron micrograph, and the right hand side is a 3D diagram of the chloroplasts. Looking at the diagram, what are some similarities in chloroplast that you're noticing with mitochondria? You can unmute and share, or you can type in the chat box.
Uh,
Yes, Bushra?
the similarities, mitochondria and chloroplast both have inner membrane and outer membrane.
Or you can say they are double membraned, isn't it?
Yeah, double membrane.
Anything else? Structurally, is there any similarity?
I have like the shape of the cell, the structure
Shape.
from the shape of the cell.
Shravani, what were you going to say?
I was thinking about the function, like both are powerhouse sort of thing.
Yes, that is a functional similarity. That is, both have something to do with producing energy in the cell, right? Okay, so in the electron micrograph image, you can see that the inside of the chloroplast has something, some structures which appear like lots of things, lots of coin like structures piled upon each other like stacks. When you look at the 3D diagram, you see that these coin like structures are actually called thylakoids. They are like flat sacs, like you saw flat sacs in Golgi apparatus. They are just like that. So these thylakoids pile upon each other, at least 50 to 100 can stack together. And like that, many stacks of thylakoids will be there in the inside of the chloroplast. And these stacks are interconnected by these lamellae. Can you see the lamellae in the diagram? So these stacks are all interconnected, and inside them, there is a fluid filled space. And it is this thylakoid is actually made up of membrane, and all over the membrane you will find chlorophyll pigment. So this is where the chlorophyll is for the chloroplast. Okay, the outer membrane of the chloroplast is smooth like mitochondria, and all these thylakoid that you're seeing is actually the foldings of the inner membrane. So there is an inner membrane, and these thylakoids are extensions of the inner membrane, forming coin-like structures and stacking one upon each other and connecting with each other. Each stack is connected to the other. So what do you notice over here? Again, the inner membrane is very, very complexly folded. Why do you think so? What is the reason for so many folds? To increase the surface area. That means more the number of these thylakoids, more surface area will be there. And why does chloroplast need all this surface area? To accommodate more and more chlorophyll pigments. More chlorophyll pigments they have, more photosynthetic reactions can happen. Okay, more photosynthesis happens, more carbohydrates will be produced, And with those carbohydrates, the plant cell can make more ATP. Ultimately, what does your body do with the glucose and carbohydrate? Respires and breaks it down into ATP or energy. That energy is the fuel for your cell. Using that energy, you do all other activities, isn't it? So this inner membrane is further thrown into more complex structures called thylakoids. Now together, all the thylakoids or each stack of thylakoid is called granum. Singular is granum, plural is grana. Now, apart from the granum, you will see that the inside of the chloroplast is again filled with a fluid, like mitochondrial matrix. Here also there is a fluid filled space. But this space is not called matrix. This space is called stroma. Can you see stroma? The space in which these thylakoids and grana are located is filled with fluids containing lots of proteins, enzymes. Again, in this stroma, you will find circular DNA and 70S ribosomes of the chloroplast. They are chloroplast's own DNA and ribosome. So this is the site where all the activity of photosynthesis reaction is happening. Just like I told you, respiration is not a simple single reaction. There are many stages. Same goes for photosynthesis. Lots and lots of stages of reactions happen inside the chloroplast during photosynthesis. Okay. And they all happen over here in the stroma and inside the thylakoids. So let's read some more details. I'll give you a minute, read through all these points, and if you have any questions, ask me from this slide. It'll be better if you can unmute and ask your question because it's slightly tricky for me to see the chat box when on present mode. Girls, are you being able to see the bottom of the slide or is it getting covered?
It's getting covered.
Okay, just a second. I'll just refresh it. Okay, you can read it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So mostly cells rich with chloroplast will be found in the palisade and the spongy mesophyll region, not in the epidermis. Lower or upper epidermis don't have chloroplasts. Mostly these mesophyll cells will have the chloroplasts in them.
Miss Amrita, I have a question.
Yes, please ask.
Why are thylakoids called branching membranes? I understand why branching, but why are they called membranes? You said.
Because they have their own membrane and these they are like sacs connected to each other, but everything is covered by a membrane. And if you cut a slice of the thylakoid, you will see that there are each thylakoid has their own membrane and inside there is a space, a fluid filled space, and in that space also some photosynthetic reactions are going on. So if you see this, Can you see these yellow color spaces in the thylakoid? They're called the lumen.
Yeah.
And each thylakoid is covered by its own membrane. Plus the connections are also continuous. If you see, there's no barrier. That means when one thylakoid is connected to thylakoid of another grana, the interconnection is inside also. The fluids are connected, not cytoplasm, but the fluids are connected. So things can move across. Reactions are happening across. And if you watch more closely, actually these thylakoids have emerged from the inner membrane only. So the thylakoids are nothing but extensions of inner membrane. Inner membrane is forming a membrane, as well as in the inside it's forming these thylakoids. Okay, if I can for just a moment show you a more detailed diagram, I would show this one. So I don't know if it is clearly visible to all of you, but this is the inner membrane. Look at the wall, it's blue over here. The inner wall is the inner line of the blue color membrane, and these thylakoids are actually extensions, means inward projections of the inner membrane itself, which forms coin-like structures. Then look at the thylakoid system. Each grana, this is one grana, this is granum, this is a second granum, this is a third granum. Each granum is some way or the other connected to the other one through a lamella. And all the reactions happening inside each thylakoid, they can move across to other granum. Okay, this is just to ensure that effectively photosynthetic products are being distributed throughout. I'll just wait for one more minute. If you have any further questions, you can ask. If you are done reading, just let me know that you're done reading. Make sure that you keep in mind that the chlorophyll is not floating in the stroma. The chlorophylls are all embedded on the surface of the thylakoids. So it is the grana which contains the chlorophyll. The stroma only contains DNA, RNA, 70S ribosomes, and enzymes. So the function of chloroplast is exclusively focused on photosynthetic reaction. This is a site where photosynthesis happens. And this is a site where light from the sun is trapped by the chlorophyll pigment and converted into chemical energy, that is carbohydrates and ATP. Okay, shall we move to the next slide then?
Yes.
All right. This is the last organelle that we'll discuss for today. So for this organelle, I have a 1-minute video. I want to take your suggestion. Do you want to watch the video on my screen? Will you be able to hear and watch clearly? Or should I share the link in the chat box? It's depending
Share the
on
link.
your internet bandwidth. Share, right? Okay, I'll just
Yeah.
share it.
Lysosomes are
I'm sorry.
membrane-bound vesicles that contain hydrolytic enzymes.
Okay. All right. This is shared in the chat box. Please watch the video. Wait, before you move to the video, I have 3 things for you to look out. When you're watching the video, be ready to come back and share. I will be asking you questions about what are structural features of lysosome. I will be asking you questions about the steps in which lysosome is being formed. And I will ask you the question of what are the 2 main functions of lysosome. Structure, how it is formed, 2 main functions. Okay, now you can watch the video. We'll come back in 2 minutes. Let's get back in 30 seconds. Okay, if you are done watching the video, here is, let's get back. Here is the first question in the chat box, and recall from the video and share 2 structural features of lysosomes. You can just type in short phrases. Let's be quick. What are the 2 structural features of lysosomes? Waiting for your responses. Yes, it's a membrane bound vesicle. That means it has its own membrane. Okay. Any other structural feature? They contain hydrolytic enzyme, correct? All right, so far we got 2 features, that is the lysosomes possess their own membrane, and inside the lysosomes there are hydrolytic enzymes. Anything about the hydrolytic enzyme that you got to know in the video? The function, what is the function of this enzyme?
They
Yes, Rimjim?
degrade proteins, nucleic acid, lipid.
So we all have studied hydrolysis and condensation reaction, isn't it? In our biological molecule unit. So in hydrolysis, what happens? A polymer is broken down into its subsequent monomers with the help of water. So if we don't have these enzymes, water will do the hydrolysis, but it will take hours and hours to perform that reaction. What does this hydrolytic enzyme in lysosome do? It speedens that reaction, speeds it up. or accelerates that reaction. So when proteins or nucleic acids or lipid carbohydrates need to be broken down in your cell, the lysosome's hydrolytic enzyme does that function. Okay, now comes the main question, that is, what did you observe about steps in which lysosomes are formed? So from where does this hydrolytic enzyme come at the first place? Then how does it get transported to the Golgi body? What does the Golgi body do with this hydrolytic enzyme? And how is it packaged and how is the lysosome finally formed? So I will be looking at the chat box for your responses about what are the steps in which lysosomes are finally formed in your cell. I'm not asking about the function or what it does. I'm asking finally, how does the lysosome form in your cytoplasm? Think and share in the chat box. Rimjim, is the lysosome formed in the endoplasmic reticulum? Because you have mentioned it. So I don't know what that it means. Okay, hydrolytic enzyme. The hydrolytic enzyme, yes. Be careful when you're mentioning it. At least in the beginning of your answer, say what you're referring to. So it's the hydrolytic enzyme, is we know it's a protein. So protein synthesis will happen with the help of ribosome. The new protein will move into the cisternae or the space inside the endoplasmic reticulum. Then endoplasmic reticulum will pack it into a transport vesicle, and the transport vesicle buds off from the endoplasmic reticulum and fuses with the cisternae of the Golgi body. Inside the Golgi body, what happens to the hydrolytic enzyme? Processing, packaging, joining different polypeptides together to make the hydrolytic enzyme ready for catalysis. Okay. Finally, from the budding end, or from the end where the Golgi apparatus pinches off, small round vesicles of ribosome will bud off from the Golgi apparatus, and inside them will be these hydrolytic enzyme packaged. Okay. Now these bud of spherical globule like structures, they are permanent lysosomes. They are not temporary transport vesicles. So basically lysosomes are produced by the Golgi body. So sometimes in your multiple choice question, they may ask, name one organelle in your cell which is produced by another organelle of your cell. And that is lysosome. Lysosome is one organelle. It is produced by the Golgi apparatus. Yes. Yes, you're right, Sakshi and Shraddha. Basically, lysosome's function is to destroy the viruses and remove the waste from the cell. So when bacteria or viruses are floating in your body fluid, your white blood cells, which are your defense cell, they engulf or they swallow these bacteria. You saw how they swallow by an infolding. Okay. So like this, if you have noticed, this is the function. So the
Fuses with the particle such as.
So we all know that the Golgi apparatus is membrane, the lysosomes membrane, and the cell's own cell membrane, they're all made up of same material. So they can easily pinch off or fuse with each other. So when the cell is coming in contact with bacteria or
Viruses or bacteria are ingested by phagocytosis.
So this process by which you are seeing that the cell membrane is pushing inwards and forming a pocket and then swallowing the bacteria or engulfing. The word is engulf. Engulfing the bacteria or virus, that is called phagocytosis. Okay, the cell eating. Once the phagocytosis has happened, now that whole infolding will convert into a vesicle like this. This vesicle will now be called a phagosome. Now we know cytoplasm is fluid, so phagosome will float, go close to the lysosome.
Fuses with the particle-containing vesicle called a phagosome, and
so now the lysosome and phagosome fuses, so hydrolytic enzyme will mix with the contents of the phagosome. That means all the bacterial wall, virus and everything, they will get degraded or digested by the bacteria, by the lysosome enzyme. Once the digestion is done, then all the necessary nutrients can be absorbed by the cytoplasm to make important things for the cell. Or if it is toxic or waste, it will be removed out of the cell. What is the second function of lysosome?
Delivers the hydrolytic enzymes. Lysosomes also fuse with organelles such as old mitochondria.
So just like a cell ages or we age, the organelles inside our cells also have a lifespan. After that, they stop functioning or they become too slow. So they start wasting the energy of the cell. So that is the right time when lysosomes go and digest these organelles, so that all the necessary materials which were used to make that organelle can be recycled and reused by the cell to make new structures. Okay. I will just quickly stop sharing and go to the next slide. We have a couple of minutes and then we can end. Okay. So just take a few seconds to read through these characteristics and function of lysosomes. So as you can see, here are the dimensions of the lysosome. Comparatively, the lysosomes are very small in terms of the size of mitochondria and chloroplast. And each lysosome can contain many different types of hydrolytic enzymes. So some hydrolytic enzyme will break proteins, some can break lipids, some can break down carbohydrates. And the two functions that you saw in the video are also outlined here. With that, we come to the end of discussion about the 4 organelles. So after I end this call, I'm going to share some reading and study tips about these organelles that we discussed in the class today. Make sure you check your mail and go through them. They're not very extensive reading. They're just electron micrographs and some example statements that you should write in your answers. So here are some electron micrographs of different organelles. This is the cell membrane. This is the Golgi apparatus. What is this? Can you identify? Yes, these are all false colored electron micrographs. At the bottom, this is the nucleus. You can see the dark nucleolus region. This electron micrograph highlights the endoplasmic reticulum with ribosomes. So it's a rough endoplasmic reticulum. And these are lysosomes, again, false colored. Quick check. What is this rectangular highlighted structure in the mitochondria called? Can anyone recall?
Cristae.
A single one is crista and plural is cristae. Okay, who can tell me what is structure A in this chloroplast? It's showing with a curly bracket.
Granum.
Yes, a single granum. What is structure C? Anyone?
Thylakoid, something
It's
like
called
that.
a thylakoid. So one granum can possess about 50 to 100 thylakoids. What is the arrow D showing?
Stroma.
Yes, D is showing the stroma. What is this dark colored structure in this? First of all, tell me what is this structure and what is this dark structure within it? Who can tell? Which
That's
diagram?
a
What is this
nucleus.
whole organelle?
Nucleus.
Correct. And the dark region within it?
Nucleolus.
Nucleolus. Make sure you write correct spellings in your exam. What are these thread-like structures inside the nucleus called?
Chromatin.
These are chromatin. They are loose, so they are chromatin. Had they been tightly coiled, then you would call them chromosomes. What is the outer covering of nucleus known as?
Nuclear pore. No, the
Covering is called pore.
no.
Nuclear envelope.
Nuclear envelope, and these gaps are the nuclear pores.
Oh.
What are these? What is this structure?
Golgi apparatus.
Wrong answer.
Rough endoplasmic reticulum.
This is endoplasmic reticulum because you can see it's close to the nuclear envelope, not
Yeah.
Golgi apparatus. So you can see smooth and rough. And these gaps or the spaces within the endoplasmic reticulum, what are they known as? Does anyone remember? Starts with C. Cisternae. Okay. Cisternae, not Krista. Krista is this. Okay. The gaps or the spaces inside the endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus are called cisternae. Okay. So I will be sharing this textbook reading and study tips over mail to those of you who are in this call right now. You can find your own self-study time to just skim through them. There's no submission related to this. Okay, thank you everyone for patiently participating and actively responding to my questions. I hope this class was effective in terms of clarifying some doubts around organelles. If you haven't still done this unit, please work on modules 22, then 28, 29, and 30. You can also work on the rest of the modules associated, but these modules are the modules focusing on organelles. That's all for today. And thank you very much.
Miss Amrita,
Yes.
I have a clarification.
Yes, please ask before leaving.
I'm confused between nuclear envelope and nuclear membrane. Like,
So
are
the
they
nuclear
different?
membrane is the nuclear envelope. Okay, the nuclear membrane is folded 2 times to form an envelope. That's why it's called an envelope. It's the same thing. It's just that we don't call it membrane because it's not one sheet. It's folded into 2. That's why it's called a nuclear envelope. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the last clarifying question. That's all for today, girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.